Hi, everyone. We are back for a rapid reaction to the March FOMC meeting, which was yesterday, Wednesday, March 22nd. My name is Connor O'Brien. I am joined by my colleague, PJ Schaefer. So let's get right into it. PJ, the Fed met yesterday, Powell spoke, the market moved. What all happened and was it expected?
Yeah, good to be in the hot seat as we break down probably the most widely anticipated Fed meeting we've had since really the Fed started raising rates last year. So let's just jump right in. 25 basis point hike, that was what was announced, moved the discount rate from 4.75% up to 5%. The question about was this expected? Honestly, it depends on when you look. If we go back to last meeting, the Fed pretty much said, hey, we're going to do 25 basis points in February, 25 basis points in March. Since then, we had incredibly hawkish Jay Powell testify in front of Congress. At that point, we started hearing a lot of rhetoric that we might get a 50 basis point rate hike. A mere week later, we had the 16th largest bank here in the U.S., Silicon Valley Bank. They failed, at which point we started hearing a lot about rate cuts. Not to mention, we got some inflation data with both softening and firming. So put all that together, where does that leave us? You can see here on the screen, the morning of the rate decision or the day before the rate decision, about an 86% chance of a 25 basis point rate hike. Basically, the market said, look, we'll let you do 25 basis points. That's what we want you to do. And the Fed took it.
So the market closely watches changes made to the official FOMC statement. So when you look at that official FOMC statement, anything notable there or any significant changes from last time?
Yeah, we saw a big change. And actually, the statement, generally speaking, was dovish, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But if we look at what changed from before to now, right off the bat, we actually had a little bit more of a hawkish tone. The Federal Reserve, they said that inflation they took out has eased somewhat, completely removed that, and input remains elevated. That's a hawkish undertone. The war in Ukraine, that used to be kind of front and center. Now the banking sector, the financial system is absolutely front and center. That is what the Fed is paying most closely attention to. The last statement on the screen here is probably what we think is the most important. This was a major dovish shift in tone. What the Fed is saying, or what they had said, is they anticipate ongoing rate increases. That is plural. That is multiple rate hikes. They removed that and put in additional firming may be appropriate. That is key because we think that sets the Fed up for possibly one more rate hike in May and then a pause. So that was a very, very dovish tilt there.
So a big part of these FOMC days, obviously, with the statement coming out, is where Powell speaks. He comes out and he has a statement, and then he speaks to the financial media where he answers questions. So this is where you really see a lot of the market movement happening. So yesterday the market popped initially and then dropped and ended off about 1.5%. At the same time, yields plunged, and the dollar plunged. So what was said in that press conference, and why did it move markets?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I said that this meeting is the most widely anticipated Fed meeting since the Fed started raising rates, completely upstaged by Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and what she said to a Senate subcommittee. So let's unpack this a little bit. So Connor, you're right. The market was very favorable after that 25 basis point rate hike announcement. Remember, the market said, take 25 basis points, we'll give that to you. The statement was also very, very dovish. Remember, removing the ongoing rate hikes and putting in will firm as necessary. So again, sort of setting the stage. So that's why you got that market kind of pop, the market rallied. End of the day, yeah, down over 1.5%. Why was that? Secretary Treasury Janet Yellen. What she did is she kind of came out and sort of rained on the parade of all FDIC insurance for everybody. If you remember in the Q&A, and it's the last statement there from Jay Powell, actually the first statement, All depositor savings in the banking system are safe. Well, then Secretary Treasury Yellen said, no, we haven't really started talking about FDIC insurance, expanding it. We think it's going to stay the same. So the market was trying to figure out how these two titans, Jay Powell and Janet Yellen, both speaking at the same time, saying absolutely contradictory statements. That's why I think you saw the market sell off as much as it did yesterday. We're actually seeing a little bit of a rally today. So a big thing moving forward is we're going to get some clarification statements as to what they were actually trying to say. Frankly, it was a little bit surprising that they didn't coordinate a little bit more before they started making major public statements, but that was why we saw a big sell-off yesterday, even though the rate hike was good and the dovish comments were good.
Yeah, so when it comes to the Fed, anything else that we are looking at or we should be watching or paying attention to at this point?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, something that just isn't getting a lot of sort of press right now, Lael Brainerd, right? Lael Brainerd, she was the Fed vice chair. She was the number 2 on the Federal Reserve. She has left. She went to take a position with the administration, the director of National Economic Council. The reason why she's important, not just because she was the number 2 and really important, but she was also the most dovish member of that committee. And so she has now stepped off. The question now is who President Biden is going to nominate. There's really 2 names to keep an eye on. One is Janice Eberly. She's a finance professor from Northwestern. She has very much a dovish background. I think if she stepped in, she would definitely be more on the dovish side of the spectrum. The other name is Karen Dinan. She's a Harvard economist, very much on the other side. She would probably be one of the more hawkish members of the voting committee. So those are just 2 names to keep an eye on. Again, I think for everybody looking for more of a dovish Fed is going to be hoping for Janice Eberly.
And moving forward now, what should we be watching over the next few months as investors? What will the Fed be watching in order to make the decision in May on whether or not to pause or raise rates one additional time?
Yeah, so first off, April, the Fed is off. So we're not going to be looking for any type of Fed data. The next Fed meeting is going to be the first week in May. But there are going to be some potentially market moving items that do happen. Notably, we get some inflation data there Wednesday, April 12th. And the 13th, we get PPI or producer price index. That's going to be really important inflation data. Also, earnings season is going to start. Those kick off unofficially with the banks. So we're getting ready for earnings season. And then obviously we're going to get a couple of job prints as well. I think one kind of last thing, Connor, before I hand it back to you, May is going to be really interesting because we have the May FOMC meeting that first Thursday. We actually get an inflation print the following week. So I do anticipate we'll see a little bit of volatility there the first couple of weeks in May, just as the market is trying to figure out what the Fed is saying and doing and getting ready for that CPI print on Wednesday, May 10th.
Great. Thanks, PJ. We really appreciate your insights. Thank you for joining us today. If you're a legacy client and you have additional questions or you want to talk about this or the Fed or anything else, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we'll see you next time.